Hello and welcome to another video by myself, Chris from Sorare on a Budget. In today's video, I'm going to be taking a look at the Turkish Super Lig. Obviously fairly new to Sorare, and I'm going to split the video into two parts. I had hoped to do it all in one. Unfortunately, trying to cover 20 teams in one video is going to be a tall order. On that basis, it's going to be split down into two. So what I'm going to be covering is it's going to be club by club, little look at the club itself, and then a few players from each club that are probably worth having a wee look at. Unlike a lot of the other videos, these cards aren't necessarily the low end cards. Some of these are a lot higher. Rare prices are going through the roof, and as such, you are having to pay more for an average card. But if you've been buying cards, you probably have found that your gallery is worth more. So when you are selling and you're buying other cards, you're probably balancing out. If you're new to Sorare, you can follow me on Twitter at Sorare on a Budget. And you can also join up on my link, which will be in the description below, which is sorareonabudget.com. That'll take you to the Sorare website. You'll get your 10 free common cards. And when you've bought 5 cards from the new card auctions, you'll also get a free card there as well. In relation to the Turkish League, the main account I would suggest everybody follows, talked about it in the video yesterday, is at Sorare_Turkey. Invaluable amount of information between injury news, suspension news, and actually yesterday there was in-depth match previews, which were just so much detail. So that's well worth having a look at. The amount of time that the lads putting into the profile alone, to be honest, I'd be charging for it. So whilst it's free, make the most of it. Give them a follow, and yeah. So without further ado, because there is a lot to cover off in the video, I'm going to crack on with the first team. No, actually, no, I'm not. That's a lie. I'm going to cover off a little bit of the league itself. So 20-team league. It's a 38-game season. We're at game. We've covered off 16 games. We're in game 17, game week 17 just now. The first game is actually happening whilst I'm recording this. Yeah, so there's Besiktas are the reigning champions. Trabzonspor, top of the league at the moment. They were unbeaten until last weekend, where they lost their first game. So it'll be interesting to see if they regain their form back this weekend and carry back on. Only 6 clubs, interestingly, have actually won the league, and that being Galatasaray, Fenerbahce, Besiktas, Trabzonspor, Bursaspor, and Başakşehir. So yeah, it's it's a vast league. It's like, obviously the English Premiership's the same kind of thing, 20 teams. It does mean there is going to be those perennial mid-league teams, but you never know, they could break out and push on to make a challenge for the European places. But it also means that there's a lot of teams are what you would probably class as safe teams to pick up players from, in terms of avoiding relegation. So without further ado, now I will cover off the teams. So the first one I've got is Adana Demirspor. Currently sitting 8th in the league. They were newly promoted. They won the second tier last season, and they've been making a fairly decent stab at things so far. Defensive wise, they've got a few cards that are definitely worth having a look at. I've got 2, and full disclosure, one of them's in the video here. So the first one, Jonas Svensson, may be familiar to many of you. He transferred in the summer from AZ Alkmaar. 3-day average price. You'll see on some of the other cards, I've gone with the prices are from Sorare data. A lot of these cards, they're still low mints. There's not an awful lot of each of these cards, although there are some like Jonas Svensson, who does have his previous 2020 card from Alkmaar. But a lot of these cards, there might only be less than a dozen of them. So the auction prices versus what people are charging are 2 vastly different things. So you have to bear that in mind. So when you see 3-day average price, a lot of that time that may well be that it's been in the auction, but what people are charging is a little bit higher. So you've also got to then factor in things like what's the recent performance been, and if they've had 2 or 3 good games since their last sale, you're likely going to be paying more than what that average price says. That's just the nature of the beast. So yeah, Jonas Svensson, 3-day average 0.081. His last 5 games, average of 51, last 15 of 48. Now, he's played all those games. He's been 100% starter, 95% of the minutes played there as well. And the last couple of games definitely picked up his average. When I picked him up, he was only on an average of 42. He's had 2 good games. It's brought him up to 51 for the last 5. So that's pretty decent going. A couple of good games, and you could see that price shoot right up. That price is actually really for the 2020 cards. The 2021s have been hovering around the 0.1 mark. So again, bear that in mind if you are looking to try and buy one of the 2021 cards. I get a lot of low ball offers, which are in line with the cards with no bonus on them. And when you're competing for cards, that bonus percentage might not seem like a lot, but when you compete for those cards, it really is. The next one I've got is Sinan Kurt. He has a last 5 of 52 and a last 15 of 44, which is a wee bit low, but the last 5 is quite decent. 0.085 has been his last 3-day average. Plays as a centre midfielder. 81% starts. He's had 2 substitute appearances, and 1 game he missed. He was on the bench and didn't get brought on. And he's had 1 assist for the season so far. So a fairly steady performer, if unspectacular. Benjamin Stambouli, the next one, 3-day average 0.081. Now that's probably, again, looking at his Schalke card, which is a defender card. So be very careful if you're looking for the midfield version. You are going to need to get the 2021 version, which is more expensive. I've had a look at it myself. It just was a wee bit out of my price range at the moment, but it's one that I probably will come back to. Last 5 of 56. He's playing as a defensive midfielder. He has played, I've got my notes here in case you wonder what I'm looking down. He started 88% of the games, 81% minutes. First 2 games were a substitute as he was new to the club, and he's been a starter ever since. So from game 3 onwards, he started every single game. Reliable, and one probably worth having a wee look at if you're trying to build either an ETH grinder team. Well worth having a wee look at. Next team up, Antalyaspor. Current position in the league is 6th. Last season they finished 7th, so you can see they're a higher end, upper mid table, challenging the top 6, whichever way you want to have a look at that there. The 3 players I have listed from them: Emre Akbaba, on loan from I want to say it's Fenerbahce. I could be wrong. Could be Galatasaray. It's Galatasaray. And he's started 75% of the games, 80% of minutes. He's started every single game except 1 as a starter since his loan move. Last 5 average of 45, which is a wee bit low, but you can see from his last 15, 56. So he is somebody that, definitely has a good performance in him. He went off injured in the last game there. I'm going by Sorare Turkey's Twitter. He's unlikely to play this week. So you may well see that his average price might come down because people freak out when they get a DNP and no, the world's ending, must get rid. So yeah, you may see that change a little bit. Next one I've got is one that I've got, and that's Famara Diédhiou, moved from Bristol City. So if there's any Bristol City fans watching, you may be aware of him. Since he's moved there, he's had 6 goals in 14 games. He does seem to love a yellow card. He's had 2 separate suspensions this season, 1 for yellow cards, and he loves yellows so much that he got 2 in 1 game, and that made it red. So he's had 2 suspensions this season. So he has only had 75% starts. The 7-day average on that, because there hasn't been any sales in the last few days, because there is only, I think, about 5 or 6 of him. So it sits at 0.1. I've got mine listed at 0.15, and I won't be selling for much less than that, to be honest. He's a starter. He gets goals. He just had a double. He does have a DMP that'll drop off this weekend, hopefully, and that should see his price go up as well, to be honest. So I wouldn't be accepting anything less than, very close to the asking price on that. So the 7-day average on that, you've got to factor in, a double at the weekend, last weekend, and things like that. So I'd be reluctant to sell. You might want to have a look at the auctions for that one. last 5 of 54 and last 15 of 46 there. And he is a striker as opposed to a winger or anything else with the forward. So, and the next one is the captain of the team, and that's Karaka. 3-day average price of 0.108, which I think is pretty decent. Last 5 average of 51, last 15 of 58. He's the captain, plays on the right wing. He has 2 goals and 7 assists to his name this season so far. He missed 2 games with a suspension. He started 81%. So basically, other than the suspension, he's pretty much been a regular, a regular starter. Being the captain, that's what you tend to find with the captains. They will be playing most of those games. Another newly promoted side next, and that's Alte. They're currently playing at the moment, and they're losing 2-0 as it stands. Current league position 16th, so they are struggling a little bit. They're just above the relegation zone. Last season's position they were 5th, but they came up via the playoffs, so well done them. So let's have a look at a couple of other players. First of all, we have Murat Aksha, 3-day average of 0.067, last 5 average of 55, and last 15 of 43. So the 43 is a wee bit low, but the last 5's been pretty decent. He's had 81% starting and 75% minutes. He missed 3 games with injury, but other than that, he has been a starter for every other game, including today. What I'm going to say, just looking at the starter percentages for some of these where they have missed games, you've got to consider the climate we're living in, and the current situation. There is going to be a lot of COVID cases where you're just going to have players randomly disappearing from teams. They might be 100% starter for the last 30 games, and all of a sudden they're going to miss 3 games because they're out with COVID. It's going to happen usually on transfer market, where you can maybe look back on the history. You can see a 3-week block and it'll say unknown injury. You could probably make your own conclusions on some of those things. So the next one, Cesar Pinares, I had him last week. I think he played 1 game for me, and I sold him for a fair chunk of profit. His 2-week average 0.102, last 5 of 52, and last 15 of 51. He is an attacking midfielder, playing more of a central role today. But yeah, so he has had 81% starts as well, 72% minutes, 3 goals, 2 assists, and he's missed 2 games from injury, and he was a substitute 1 game. So as you can see, again, other than the injuries, he's been an ever-present. And speaking of ever-presents, we have Leandro Capel, 100% starts, apart from today. So I just put all this together, and the team lines came out, and he was no longer 100% starter. He has come on at half time though, so he is, he's played every single game of the season then at least. 91% of the minutes, 2 goals and 4 assists. His price is a lot higher, and I don't ever really do videos where I'm putting in 0.16. But if you're wanting a starting forward, well, I'll say starting forward apart from the day, but if you're wanting a quality forward, or a forward of any regularity, you are unfortunately having to pay quite a chunk now. They're getting up towards goalkeeper prices for some of them, although goalkeeper prices seem to be going up as well. So, but they are very high. But again, these cards are going to show some higher prices just because there are so few of them, and that is supply and demand. If you've got 70,000 users and only 7 cards, the price is going to be high for them. So that's unfortunately just how it is. Antalyaspor, next team, current league position 12th, and the last season they finished 16th. So they had a tough season last season, and they're kind of mid-table just now. 3 cards that I've got here. First one, Andrea Poli, 2-week average. So again, limited number of cards. So 2-week average 0.073. The last 5 average of 51, last 15 of 52, plays defensive midfield. His stats, 75% starts and 60% of minutes, 2 assists and 4 goals. And apart from missing a game through injury, he's been a starter otherwise. So one that's fairly safe to play, in terms of being in the team. It does seem, from looking at a few of the players for this side, that they do tend to stick with a lot of the players. Like Sorare here, 3-day average 0.123. Last 5 of 65, very high. Last 15 of 55. Plays as a centre-back. So you're looking at a really, really strong set of scores there. Now, he's 100% starter, 100% minutes. So ever-present. 1 goal, 1 assist. Looking at those stats, I mean, 0.123, again, it's a lot higher than I ever put in the videos, but that's a, that's a very strong, that's a card worth, competing to win cards with, as opposed to competing for ETH, which I've never really talked about because, it's, I've been tending to stick with the low end cards for the budgets, but this one I just wanted to give a variety of cards in it. And another ever-present, Gurai Viral, again, one that I've got, picked him up for around about that 7-day average. I was actually a little bit higher. I was 85, 0.085. He's been, again, ever-present, 1 goal, 2 assists, last 5 average of 55 and last 15 of 56. I think he had a goal line clearance last weekend, which is, gave him a high, a decisive with his score. He's listed as a left midfielder. So again, very, very strong scores. Well, Besiktas was the next one alphabetically, but they don't have cards. They do have a few players like Batshuayi and things like that, but it wasn't enough to make it worthwhile, putting something into there. Current league position of 7th, and they are the reigning champions. So I assume they will come into Sorare the same way that who was it now? There was one of the other sides joined this week. Yeah, I've not really put anything in there for them other than just to mention them. Then we've got Rizaspor, currently at the bottom end of the table, 19th. Last season they finished 13th in mid-table, so they seem to have started to turn the corner the last couple of weeks. And they've got 3 players here, and if you look at the last 5 average for all of them, it's over 60. So there's value there, and you can also see that in the price as well. I mean, it is, again, it's a nature of the beast. So the first one I've got is Salim I, something like that. Of his last 3-day average is 0.114. Last 5 average of 65 and last 15 of 48. Plays as a centre back. 75% starts and 80% of minutes. He's got 3 goals. He has just accumulated 4 yellows, which in Turkey is a suspension. So he will miss this week's games. So you might see his average price again come down a little bit there. Next one, Rick Baldwin, midfielder, attacking midfielder, right wing. He's played kind of half and half. 3-day average 0.107, last 5 of 63 and last 15 of 49. The bracket percentage is how many games they've played. Just in case I should have mentioned that, halfway through the video, and I've not mentioned that. He has had 69% starts and 60% of minutes, 1 goal, 3 assists. And he's missed the early few games in the season, but recently he's been on form. He's had 3 goals in 5 games recently. So as they're turning their fortune round, he's definitely been contributing. I think in each of the 3 games that he scored, then they actually won. The last one here is Somali Sertel. Age on him to under 23, so he's a 21-year-old. 3-day average 0.131, last 5 average of 60 and last 15 of 55. Plays as a left back. We all know that the fullback positions are boom or bust. At the moment he's a boom. So you're looking at 81% starts and 75% minutes, 1 goal to his name. He did miss 3 games in the middle of the season, and again you could draw your own conclusions. It was a 3-week block altogether. As to what it said, unknown. So you could, again, you'd probably draw your own conclusions as to what that is. But an under 23 defender scored an average of 55 for his last 15. That's a good price. Once people become a bit more aware of the Turkish league, that could be one that could see a wee bit of a climb yet in terms of his price. Next team up, there's some people love me butchering names, and I'm really sorry to any fans of this club, but I'm going to go with Fatih Karagümrük, something like that. I am very sorry for any supporters of this club. Current league position is 11th. Last season they finished 8th. So, again, that kind of mid to upper mid table team. 3 players that we've gone with here. We've gone with Andrea Bertolacci. Last three day average of 0.165, which is quite high, but you'll see in a second in terms of his stats. Last 5 average of 50, last 15 average of 60 as a centre mid. This season he's had 7 goals and 1 assist. He missed the first 3 games of the season. 69% starts, 59% of minutes. So ever present other than the first 3 weeks. The reason he's so high in price is his, 7 goals is going to make anybody be more expensive when they're a midfielder. And they've played 12 games, 13 games. So, then we've got a favourite of Scotland Surveyors, Connor Erkin. Last 3-day average of 0.07. 52 average for the last 5, 50 for the last 15. He had played all bar 1 of the last 15, as you can see from that 93% there. 85% start, 81% minutes. He's been a starter since joining, but last week he was on the bench and didn't come on. So whether he was carrying an injury and they had him on the bench or what have you, it seemed a bit odd. I was in the middle of trying to buy him last weekend and couldn't get a deal done before the deadline, and then he wasn't on. So maybe that was a good omen. I didn't get hold of him. The last one here is I think he's the most expensive one I've got in the video, and it's a very, very high price, but it's a very, very high return. 3-day average 0.209 for Alexander Pesic. Last 5 average of 56, last 15 of 54. He's got 9 goals to his name. He started every single game, 96% of the minutes. 9 goals, 1 assist. He's a top goal scorer in the league. So hence the price. You're paying for the return on it. Fenerbahce. Fenerbahce and Galatasaray, to be honest, I didn't want to put them in. I put them in because I want to keep it complete. The reason I didn't want to put them in is it was a real struggle to find players that were 100%, starters or even close to that. Some of them were 60s and less, so it seemed to be a lot of rotation. Now, I don't know if there was a specific reason for that or if it's just because of squad size and European competitions or anything like that. I don't know. But there is a lot of rotation. So personally, I'd probably, unless you've got a nailed on starter, I'd probably avoid these because you'll see that the stats aren't great, but the prices are high. So and it makes me wonder when we see the Premier League teams come into the game and a lot of people are more mainstream players, what prices some of these cards are going to go for, even for a subpar player, a bottom end team. I still think the prices could be a wee bit silly. So first one I've got up here, again, I must have jinxed things as well. Ferdi Karagioglu. It was just announced today. I seen it on Twitter at the last minute, just as I was having a quick nosy before I started the video. Out for 5 to 6 weeks. However, that probably will see his average price come down significantly. He is 21 as a midfielder, so his price was a bit higher. You might see that come down a little bit. He's played left and right mid. Last 5 of 45. I don't think anybody, scoring 45 is worth anything like that. But this is what it was at Fenerbahce. Mesut Ozil was the next one that I used. 0.092. Last 5 of 51, he's only played 3 of them. And last 15 of 45, and he's only played 60%. So that's 9 out of 15. That's not a great return. Attacking midfielder. As we all know, he's never seemed to settle. He'll have good spells and then just vanish. So 5 goals, 2 assists for the season, but he's had 5 substitute appearances, 2 games missed with injury. I wouldn't buy any of these players. I really wouldn't. I've included it just for completeness. That's why I'm skipping through them. Attila Salai, 2-week average 0.165. Again, look at that average, 46. Not worth it. Not worth it in the least. Last 15 average of 44. Centre back. Avoid. But they're there for completeness. Galatasaray currently position 9th, really struggling in terms of what you would probably expect of a team like Galatasaray. Last season finished 2nd, and this season 9th. I mean, they got run close by St Johnstone, who are bottom of the Scottish Premier League at the moment. So not the best. Again, there was a wee bit of value in like DeAndre Yedlin, but apart from that, I wasn't really that impressed. It is still last season's cards. They've not had new season one yet. Sofian Feghouli, 3-day average 0.065. He has had a recent run of fixtures. He's only started 50% of games this season and 41% of minutes, but the last 5 he has started those games. He's got 1 goal and 2 assists to his name, 56 average for the last 5. Talon Antalyali, sorry. 0.068 for the last 3-day average, last 5 of 50, so that's pretty decent return, to be fair. Last 15 of 43, not so. Defensive midfielder. Now he's started 63% of the games. He's had 4 substitute appearances and 1 injury, 54% of minutes. So again, you know, there's better options out there. But DeAndre Yedlin missed the first 3 games of the season. There was rumour of him going back to the MLS. Could still be, you know, a possibility, especially in January. But he's been a starter ever since, so I would probably highly doubt it. But last 5 average of 47, last 15 of 46, 0.068 for the last 3-day average, so it's not too bad. But it's not a huge return on them either. There are better options if you do a bit of digging. And finally for the video, Gaziantep, current league position 13th and the last season position 9th. So again, one of those mid-table teams. And we've got a few good players here. The first one I've got up is Alexandru Maxim, Romanian midfielder, plays as an attacking midfielder. Last 5 of 66 and last 15 of 52. 0.126 was his price. He has started 56% of games and 52% of the minutes, 3 goals and 2 assists. Now, the reason he's missed, he's only started so many, is that he missed the first 6 games of the season due to a fractured toe. So that would have been a painful one. So, but he's been back ever since, and he's knocking in some, 66 for a 5-game average. It's pretty solid in Andy's book. Again, that would help you compete towards cards as opposed to just ETH. Next one, Recep Niaz. 3-day average 0.061, which seems pretty good for a 52 average, 100% of games there. Now, for the season, he has 81% starts, 77% minutes. He's got 1 goal to his name in there as well. He missed 2 games with COVID, and it was confirmed COVID as opposed to an unknown injury. But 0.061, I think that's a pretty decent price for an attacking midfielder. So it's probably one that I'm going to go and have a look at and see if I can get my hands on one. And finally, it's Pape Djilobodji. Pape to his friends. 3-day average 0.09. Last 5 of 49, last 15 of 49. Centre back, fairly consistent in terms of those scores. And in terms of keeping numbers the same, because you see 80%, 80%. So in terms of his starts and his minutes, he's 75% starts, 75% minutes. 1 goal, 1 assist. He was benched for 3 weeks after a 4-0 loss. He had 2 games where he just sat on the bench and 1 game where he came on. And he also missed 1 game with a suspension as well for a card accumulation, I think it was. So missed a game there. But as you can see, there's a wide variety of prices, and some of the more well-known teams like more well-known teams to me, for example, being in Scotland, were Galatasaray, Besiktas, Fenerbahce, those kind of teams, Trabzonspor. Those prices for a lot of those players are really high, especially for the Galatasaray ones, and the Fenerbahce ones. I couldn't find something of any great value there. But some of these teams, you can look at Niaz. And I would say that he's a far better pickup than any of those cards that were sitting there at Fenerbahce. I mean, if you go back to the Antalyaspor and look at like Vural and Sorare, there's much better value than some of those big teams. So it tends to be that way because sometimes people don't do enough digging to find those those cards that are worth that a little bit more. So thank you to everybody that subscribed to the channel. Thanks for making it through the video this far, if you have done. Part 2 will be out very soon. It did take me the better part of 4 hours to complete my notes and to put this slideshow together to get this done, which going back to yesterday's video as to why I've not done them. I mean, it took a long time. I've tried to do a slightly different format, and be interesting to hear what people think of the format. Again, if you are new to Sorare and you want to give it a go, you've got a bit interested in the Turkish League, SorareOnABudget.com, and you can sign up on the Sorare website there, and you'll get your 10 common cards you can use in the casual league, and then you'll get your free card when you sign 5 from the new card auctions, which you can then sell or you can use in your SO5 leagues. Follow me on Twitter at SorareOnABudget. I should have also put Sorare Turkey in there at the end as well, had it at the start. Best follow for the Turkish League. So with that, I'll leave you just now. I'll go and crack on sorting out part 2. And yeah, I'll speak to you all again soon. Take care.